I'm in a book club. Anyone else in book club? Yay, book club. So the book club that I'm in today is very, very different from my first book club. My first book club was formed with a group of friends shortly after we graduated from college. And it was a great way for the girls to get together and catch up with one another's lives and drink way too much wine. And there was a side of book. But the book club that I'm in today is much more mature. And so I notice as I look at the people, some of which are remnants from the original book club and some of which are new, that women change considerably between the time they just graduate from college and where we are now. For example, younger women are obsessed with never really showing who they are. They are constantly choosing perfect outfits to accentuate their assets. They are waxed and tweezed and even lasered into complete hairlessness, and their style must always be perfect. And God forbid you are out on a date and you have to do something like pee or poop or burp or fart. I mean, you can't even pick at more than a tiny salad when you're in front of a man. But the book club that I'm in now, one by one, we have all started to go through the change. So I'm not talking about menopause, if you thought that's where this story was going to go. What I'm actually talking about is what happens when women approach 40 and suddenly stop obsessing over those minute details and striving for perfection, and just decide to be comfortable living in the skin we're in. And one of the things that has happened that has impacted book club is now that we have dispatched with all of those obsessions, we can now really get into the book and we can really start to pick apart the characters and engage in some lively debate, and we just kind of put it all out there. But of course, before we actually sit down and talk about the book, we talk about our lives and we share our stories, and sometimes we find that there are some things that we can laugh about. Things that might previously have been dreadfully, dreadfully embarrassing, but now we can look back and say, ha, isn't that hilarious? So the one with the funniest of all the stories is my friend Wendy. Now Wendy, she married very, very young, and then she divorced also similarly young. And ever since I've known her, she's been a single, actively dating kind of girl. And she has dated a wide array of interesting characters. There's been the tattoo artist, there's been the guy who did home improvements, there's been the bar manager, and it just seems like every couple of weeks Wendy is into something new with someone new. And the other great thing about Wendy is she is not afraid to laugh at herself. She's not afraid to be real. And one of the reasons why she's one of my best friends is because Wendy is not afraid to call me out on my own crap. One of her favorite lines is, "Oh, Catherine, please." And sometimes I need it. So that's why me and Wendy, we hang out a lot together. Now, Wendy has a very interesting, eclectic mix of friends, and some of those friends actually have a cabin in Montana where Wendy will go for part of the summer. Evidently, Montana is very cool and refreshing, and this cabin is out in the woods. It's a nice getaway to really have some great time with her friends, and evidently they eat well and they drink well and they just completely decompress from the pressures of normal life. And Wendy was out there one year, and the meal that they had that she was telling me about was this amazing piece of meat. It was perfectly seasoned and slow roasted and tender, and they kept eating it, and it was just absolutely awesome. So she ate way too much of it. And then she climbed up to the second floor where her little room was, and she crashed with a full belly and a happy heart. And the next morning, somehow she managed to awaken hungry again. But she smelled someone making bacon. And she's like, oh my God, who got up and made bacon? So despite the fact that it was cozy in bed, she was hungrier. So she decided to get out of bed and descend the stairs down to the kitchen. And as she's going downstairs, she realizes that she's getting farther and farther away from the delicious bacon smell. And when she finally arrives in the kitchen, she discovers she's the only one awake and nobody is cooking. So she decides to go back to her warm bed, and she crosses the cabin, climbs up the stairs, and the closer she gets to her room, the stronger the smell of bacon. And that's when she realized it wasn't bacon at all, it was brisket farts. So that's certainly the kind of story that you can share with your girlfriends, and we can all have a great laugh about it. But things are very, very different when you're on a date. So, as I mentioned, Wendy has dated a handful of interesting characters, and on this particular night out, she was with a Navy guy, an MP, as a matter of fact, and they had gone out for dinner and a couple of drinks, and then she brought him back to her tiny little apartment for the very first time. And he spent the night, and sometime during the night, Wendy realized that she had a little bit of gas in her belly and started trying to think where she could go to relieve that pressure. Because her place was small, she started trying to consider, where can I go that he will not hear what's about to happen? But during the course of trying to think of a place that she could go, she fell back asleep. So she snuggled in next to him. They're kind of spooning. It's the wee hours of the morning. Everyone is asleep. When all of a sudden, there is the loud, abrupt, sharp sound emerge from her body. Being an MP, this guy was startled awake, his legs scissor kicking out from under the covers. He starts reaching around as if to grab his weapon and scanning the room, looking for the shooter. Not wanting to fess up, Wendy decided to play possum. So she continued to lay on her side and try to restrain the shaking of laughter that was welling up inside of her. Evidently, this poor guy, not wanting to reveal what has just happened by waking her, tried to lay back down and get cozy again. But the moment was completely gone. And so a short while later, he got up and he gathered his belongings and he snuck out in the middle of the night. Sadly, their relationship never did recover from the incident. And although they still encounter one another periodically through mutual friends, they have never been on another date. So, again, poor Wendy, she's telling us this story at book club, and one of the things that I should tell you is Wendy is one of our favorite members, but unfortunately, she does not attend every single meeting. And that's because Wendy does not actually like to read books. So she likes books, and she will listen to books. And when we choose a book that's available on audio format, Wendy will attend. And so we have all mutually decided to support Wendy that we will choose audiobooks, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that post 40, some of us just can't quite extend our stubby little arms far enough to read the words on the page.